When we were, gosh, it goes back to maybe, I think the first time we met, we must have been like 9. We went to the same church. I waited till she turned 18, believe it or not, and I was 19. We got married, and we've been married, it's coming up on 41 years.
We have a daughter who's our oldest, and then we have a middle son who is married, and then our youngest son who is who we're going to talk about today. Derek was one of these kids that when you saw him on a Friday night at the football game, he would be the kid in the middle with all the kids walking around him because everybody wanted to be around him. He was fun, he was loving, and he was so compassionate about other people.
There was a time in his life where he got really sick. The doctors couldn't figure it out. A lot of signs of ADHD and different things that so many different medications in the early part of his life.
Whenever he was probably a sophomore in high school, he started complaining about not being able to sleep well. He kept calling it sleep paralysis. He felt like he was wide awake and his body was frozen. That was one of the things. The other was just erratic talk about bizarre things. His mind would just kind of go off into la la land. Looking back at it now, we realize it was probably this onset of psychosis. Our son was 17 years old and he was a senior in high school. The boys at the school would go off and do what they called shantytown, and that's when they would go into the depths of the city of Cincinnati and they would serve the homeless for 3 days. When he got home, he was not making any sense whatsoever, becoming volatile, trying to flip furniture over. He was starting to scare his sister. He started becoming combative with his dad. And then he climbed to the top of our second floor and tried to throw himself out the window. Police came and they took him to a hospital. They called us the next morning and said, well, we have your son stable. There were no drugs in his system, but he is bipolar and he's probably schizoaffective as well.
And that was really the first time we learned anything about severe mental health.
The first thing that we did was try to find an outpatient program for him. What's really hard is that you don't know what to do if you don't know anything about the illness and you don't know where to go. We were able to get him a little bit of help. We were able to get him stable and he was able to go off to college his freshman year and he had a stellar year. Unfortunately, his sophomore year, he went off the rails again. He was living with his brother at the time and our son called us and said, Derek's not good.
I mean, that's the point where we both jumped on a plane, and this is what tears at you because you just want to, okay, I got to go help. It's my kid. There's nothing you wouldn't do for your kid. I mean, you'd lay your life down for your brother. You do a lot more of that for your own child.
Yeah.
And so we raced out to Baltimore, and I'm chasing him down the darkest streets of Baltimore. I literally was at a point I didn't know what we could do. The feeling is just hopelessness. And you wake up in the morning and you pray and you say, God, just keep our son safe.
So our son's been in treatment 19 times. At that particular time, we had him at a place called PCH that was near Venice Beach. And he walked out of the facility in the middle of the day, no shoes, ends up down at the beach in Venice Beach, ends up out on this jetty of rocks. And he's just screaming incoherently. He's crazy. I have been in a grieving process because I have slowly lost who my son could have been. And a lot of that is because we haven't been able to get him the help in a timely manner that he's needed over the years.
When your loved one has a mental health crisis, you pick up the phone and call, and the police come. Most of the times they take them to jail. That's not where they need to be put. And then the first obstacle you run into is, where's the bed? And then you run into the problem of what doctor? And then you'll run into the problem of what medications. And many of them won't be able to be used because they're too expensive. And then you wind up the last piece, which is the legal system. Because if your mother or your father had Alzheimer's, first thing we would do is pick them up and take them to the hospital, they'd get looked at. But if you're a teenager or a 20 or 30-year-old person, the last place they do is take you to the hospital and help you. And that's where we got to get the help. And that's going to take a lot of resources on the part of all of us.
He is now part of that homeless community because we have had such difficulty being able to get him treatment.
I mean, he's hungry on the street alone. He's cold, he wants shelter. And what did God tell us to do? He said, help those people. And I've been that guy that's walked the street trying to find our son in the darkest, deepest.
It's heart-wrenching because his mind is so gone. And all I can say is this could have been prevented if we could have kept him in treatment, been able to get him the help he needed before his mind and his brain had so much damage from the manic episodes. We may not be able to help our son. We don't know how that story is going to end. But if we can help one person in a timely manner, get them the help they need, and save their life, then it will all have been worth it. I remember the minute I heard those words, for the one, and what that actually was about. It was like a big bang of hope. We're going to do something to help somebody who struggles like our son struggles.
As we prepare our hearts and minds of what we're going to do financially, we're at that point where we're constantly talking about it and trying to arrange things in a way where we can have a significant meaning and impact to For the One. Because that's for my son. And when I wake up in the morning and when I go to bed, I never want to forget about our son. And I know he's out there alive, wherever he may be, God's got his hand on him.
And that his life means something.
And he's still got a heartbeat, and God's still working through him. And we don't know what the future holds, but God does.